I have a second by Councilmember Alvarado. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Kraut,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Gibbons.
Yes. Very good. We're going to move into public comment time. I don't see anyone in the crowd. You have nothing online. Very good. Public comment time is now closed, and we will move into our management report. And again, for those listening online, this is our special city council meeting for our capital improvement program. Management report item number 1, 2023 to 2028, capital improvement program budget workshop number 2. City manager.
So, Mayor and Council, we're pleased to present to you a draft capital improvement program for fiscal years 2023 through 2028. You will note that we've changed the format a bit to spread it out over a 5-year program. And this evening, both myself, our Public Works Director, Mike James, and our Finance Director, Roger Sanchez, will make the presentation, but Mike and I are available for any questions related to any of the projects within the CIP and then of the presentation itself. So with that, Roger.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. So I would like a question. Did everyone have a printout of the CIP book by chance? Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Same one that's online, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll go through some of those. Before we do, I'd like to give an overview of the information. So between 23 to 28, the projected is $65.9 million in projects. So this is a breakdown by fiscal year, and as you can see, the majority is on the current fiscal year and next fiscal year. This is the same information except that it's broken by the project type. So you can see the information technology, wastewater, water, streets, public facilities, police, parks, and general projects. Not necessarily general fund, but general projects. This is a breakdown by the funding source. As you can see, this is the 23 and 24. So for the current year and for the next fiscal year. And this is
Green is current and orange is the next. Is that?
no, the the green is for the next fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you.
We don't have that in our handout, huh? Oh, that's okay. It's not even in the book here.
No, but it was included on part of the package online.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't look online. I had printed copy. Oh, in the back. Okay, I was looking in the front. I'm thinking, right, I don't have it. Okay.
So we're gonna go through the book in more detail in a few minutes, and that's the main information. This is more of a quick summary on the, so here's the parks projects list for various fiscal years for a total of $7.7 million. The streets project list, again, for the next 5-year plan for a total of $22.18 million. This is the water CIP project for a total of $18.7 million. And we'll come back to in more details on those projects. And the wastewater for a total of $5.91 million. So on your book, if you turn to page 3, it has the table of contents, and it gives you a breakdown of this book, which is a total of 125 pages. So it has an executive summary on page 4, and then it has a project type and funding source that we'll go through. Then it has a project list. On page 10, it'll have general projects and then the parks projects, streets, wastewater, and the water. So if we can turn to page number 5. The top section has a table which has a breakdown by summary by project type. So there's the general projects. So this is for the full 5-year projection. The general projects is 11 million, followed by parks, and then you have the percentage, the breakdown by percentage as well. Streets at 22.1 million, water at 18.6 million, and wastewater at 5.9 million, again for a total of $65.5 million projected. The table right below that, it has summarized by the funding source. So there's a general fund of 1.6, but again, this is over a 5-year period, which represents 2.4 percentage of the total. Then we have the ARPA at 3.4, federal grants at 12 million. We have traffic mitigation at 245,000. TD8 at 7.2, the gas tax at 2.8. The water connection at 1.7 million. Wastewater at 150,000. Roads and maintenance for SB1 at 2.4 million. We do have a fiber telecommunications funded by a grant at 549,000. We also have a state grant at 14.3 million. There's an impact on the water payment by ratepayers on the water at 6.2. And we also have a water grant at 6.9 million. Wastewater impact by ratepayers at 5.7 million. So that's the summary of the $65.5 million in total. One thing that was not included by accident is the $90,000 that is from the office related to the education partnership. And that has already been discussed with the council and approved with the ARPA funds. But that's going to be added on the budget as well.
I have a question for you going on the water rate and the ratepayer impact.
Mhm.
Those were already reimbursed to us and now we're getting it from the ratepayers. Are they paying it on their payment plan?
Well, it's going to need to be a combination of potential a rate study that we're going to be requesting as well on the
There's
next.
a lot of emails. It's not, I didn't give them.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, so this doesn't have anything to do with the ones that were delinquent. They're on rate payments now,
No,
monthly payments.
no, these are capital projects related to water. And the question becomes, how do we pay for
For the
those
future.
for
I
future
got you.
projects?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and some of it will need to be, some of those projects will need to be by a combination of either impact fees or ratepayers or some other ways.
For the future.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it now.
Very good. Thank you.
On page 6, next page, it has the project type and funding source summary. So you can see the cost broken by fiscal years with plans and studies, design and engineering, with the biggest cost being the construction cost. And you can see the construction cost on the current fiscal year, 9.3 million. And the next fiscal year at 21 million, which is the biggest chunk. Again, if you look at the total on the right side, for the grand total of $65.5 million for the full estimate. The same information is provided below, except that it's by the funding source again. Same information that we shown before, except that it's broken by the different fiscal years. On page 8 and 9 gives you a better details of the individual projects. Each project group is, the different projects are broken by the project group. So the general projects is a top section at $11 million. And then we have the parks at 7.7 million. And you can see, for example, in the parks, we have the Cushman Park Field, the Mantle Park. We have the 2022 park lighting improvements, the Vets Park site improvements, the Stringham Park transit improvements, the north of Shaft Community Park, skate park improvements, Rodriguez Parks. And on that column, on the right side column, it has a 5-year projection, but it also has, the first column has life-to-date actuals expenses on each project. So you can see there's some activity already on each one of those projects. Then the next item there on the same page is the streets projects for a total of $22.1 million in streets projects. And again, you can see we've already spent on those projects $3 million life to date. And there's the listing of each one of those streets projects. I don't claim to be an expert on each one of those projects, which is Mike is going to give us an overview on some of those projects. But those are the projects on the list. On page 9, it continues with a list of the projects. So there's the total for the wastewater at $5.9 million. And we already spent in the past over $17 million. So that includes a manhole coating. The next is the southeast shafter sewer improvements. The lift station improvements, we spent a lot of money already on those, and we project to spend 1.5 million in the future. Then we have the wastewater pre-treatment programs, the wastewater plant maintenance projects, SCADA project at $150,000, and the sewer flow meter project at $600,000. Again, as you make mental notes or have questions, Mike can go into very specific projects. The next list is on water projects, which account for $18.7 million. With the top is the major well and casting repairs at $950,000. The water tank improvement, $675,000. The well maintenance projects at $950,000, SCADA projects within the water at $350,000. The water meter retrofits will exceed $1 million, and we already spent $1.4 million in the past on the water meter retrofits. Then we have the general water main, the main pipes replacements. Then we have well 21 development, future cost estimated at 2.3 million. Well, number 22 development at $3.8 million. Water meter new installments at $1.7 million. Water tank number 6 at 2.7 million, and water tank number 7 at $3.2 million. For the grand total of all the projects, again, of $65.5 million. On page 10 and 11, we start with a summary of the general projects. And as you can see on this general projects, the chart shows it represents about 17% of all projects, which is $11 million. And the list is on page 11, the list of general projects, which is the City Hall's improvements, 250,000, City Corp yard improvements at 250,000. And this is over multiple years, right? There's a city-wide broadband fiber expansion at 549,000. A police substation at 7th Standard Road at 6 million. And we have the ADA upgrades at public facilities at 500,000. And then the Shafter Aquatic Center project at $3.4 million. So now this is the first area, which is the general projects. Then we begin to see the details of each project. One project is, you can see on the left and on the right side, it gives you a description on the left side of what it is, and then the funding source on the right and the cost, the project cost on the right side as well. So if we can, let me jump to a little bit more meaningful project here. We can go to page 24 and 25. There's a summary for the parks project, which represents 12% of the total estimated cost at $7.7 million. And the list of those projects on page 25, those are the list of the parks projects. So on page 26 and 27, there's again a detail of a project which has a picture of that. In this case, is the Christian Man Park Field improvements. And then it has a description, project justification, and then the funding source on the right side, and the cost on the right side. In this case, it gives you the funding source, which is the ARPA at $400,000. The cost is estimated at the design and engineering at $20,000, and the actual construction cost at $380,000. So that is page 27 on how that's broken. We also have a future cost of maintenance and operations, which is on the bottom at $25,000 of additional ongoing cost for the future. So just to, for your reference. So page 28 and 29 would be the next parks project, which is the Manual Park site improvements. And again, page 28 has the project description. Page 29 has the design and engineering at $10,000 with a construction cost at $140,000 on the current fiscal year and $290,000 on the next fiscal year for a funding source that comes from the ARPA funding in this case. And then on page 30 is the 2022 park lighting improvements. There's the description, and I think you get the gist of it as to how there's a page for each one of those projects, and there's the breakdown of each category of parks or streets, and so there's a lot of pages that come on this book. So 120 pages or so. So If it's okay with Mike, I'd like to pass the time to Mike to give a little bit more insight on the projects.
Yes, please. Honorable Mayor, members of the Shadow City Council, Michael James, Director of Public Works. I'd like to thank Mr. Sanchez for his portion of the presentation. I think the Finance and Public Works Departments have started a CIP book and forecast that's going to be a work in progress, but overall, it'll be a very good, useful tool for both staff and the council. I'd like to conclude this presentation with project highlights specific to the upcoming fiscal year, starting with Parks and Recreation. In this case, we'll be utilizing mostly Clean California grants and ARPA funds to make significant improvements within the core city. The big ticket item, I think we'll all agree, is they're restoring the operations at the Aquatic Center. That project is in design right now. The estimated value of the improvements exceeds $3 million. And we are actively discussing how to expedite the project completion. More than likely, we'd like to have
No, it's right here.
one moment. Good. Okay. We're actively working with our consulting engineer to expedite the project completion, but more than likely, the best case scenario is that we'll be out to bid by the end of summer. The Clean California funds will focus on having the pool function properly and meeting current design standards, where the ARPA funds committed will focus more on upgrading the main building. Moving on to Veterans Park. On your regular meeting agenda tonight is an award of a basketball court construction. Also, soccer field lighting design bidding will likely happen later this year. For Stringham Park, we've already established a new transit station off of James Street. And we're currently designing additional transit and recreational amenities that should be under construction later this year. For the existing community skate park located off of East Euclid, we're about to release a design build RFP to replace the existing equipment that was originally meant to be temporary 15, 20 years ago. We should have costs, conceptual designs, and recommendations on that project by this summer. At two of our parks, Kirschman and Mantle to be exact, we have funding committed to modernize the irrigation systems, and that work should be completed later this year, by the end of this year. Moving on to streets, there are three significant projects that will reconstruct and enhance portions of major thoroughfares in the city, specifically Lerdo Highway between Valley Street and Shafter Avenue, Santa Fe Way, and the slow lane, the westbound 7th Standard Road. In addition to the basketball court, tonight's regular meeting agenda also has an award recommendation to construct decorative street lighting in the downtown corridor of James Street. In addition to the major thoroughfares, staff will continue to design and construct residential street and alley improvements. And we'll also complete street intersection safety improvements, and we're actively working on traffic studies for West Tulare Avenue and West Lerdo Highway. Our planned water projects are highlighted by a new well committed to serving the wonderful industrial park, and that project is currently under construction right now. Later next calendar year, we hope to commence drilling a new well in the North Shafter service area. We actually have some pretty promising grant leads for this project. And then beyond the well projects, we plan to continue the water meter installations with the intent of becoming fully metered by 2025. Our wastewater projects will be a continuation of wastewater treatment plant, pipeline, and manhole improvements. And it should be noted that there is a large-scale project consisting of extending sewer to the unincorporated communities in South Shafter, but that is a county-led project, which is why it's not reflected in this CIP. Finally, for public facilities, we plan to continue improvements at City Hall and finalize site and infrastructure plans for the 7th Standard Road Police and Fire substation. And with that, that concludes the highlights for next fiscal year. Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Gonzalez, and I could certainly respond to any questions or issues you might have.
I just have a question. The skate park there behind, next to,
Youth Center?
I know I've been there for a long time. I know we had one time when Chief Richardson was the chief of the park, we were trying to do something there. Now that we're at this point, if there was a development that should occur in front of the empty lot there, the frontage road on the 43, the empty parcel there.
Okay, Ash,
Yeah.
the Ash, on the south side?
Yeah.
Yep.
If we invest now, the money into that property there, the skate park, and if the developer develops something, I don't know what, wouldn't that height now the skate park, or would that be the right place for skate park?
Certainly something to discuss. I mean, we haven't committed to the project, and the proposals we receive will entail public outreach. The design engineer contractor that we recommend is prepared, will require considerable public outreach and maybe even a council meeting presentation where we can talk about the aesthetics of the skate park. This particular project consists more than just skate park equipment. We're going to be dealing with landscaping improvements that'll improve the appearance off of East Ash. And that's something, the extent of that work hasn't been determined, but certainly we can be mindful of projects in that immediate vicinity when we're considering this project award.
Yeah, I was just thinking now, I didn't, just thinking, well, the opportunity, as time goes forward, things change, right?
Correct.
At one time, at one season, that was the skate park, happened where we were hoping, but here we are today. But if that land should get developed in front of the skate park, I would just keep the skate park to be buried behind building or something. And then that really, I mean, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there now. I don't want to look back later and say, we should move the skate park, but I just being
Fair enough.
Just for my sake, dumb question on me. You're talking building the skate park. If a developer comes in, you don't want to hide the skate park. Is that, I just want to make sure I understood it correctly.
Because let's say you put, I'm gonna just an example.
Yeah.
Let's say you put an Apple Market.
Hmm.
So now that's the back part of that. Then if there was gonna be an Apple Market, that could be the back part now. So like, so do you want to have a skate park behind a building like that? Who knows, right? I don't know. It all depends what goes in front of that skate park.
Correct. Theoretically, that land is, what is, I don't even know what it's zoned right now. Is it commercial zone?
That would,
Yeah, the other part is residential, right?
So you kind of have, I think, just due east of it, you have commercial, just due south of it, I think is a combo of commercial and dense residential, or is it all commercial?
It's all residential too. It's all.
Yeah, and that pretty much comes all the way out to where you're at.
I'm right in front of the youth center.
So you're talking right in front of the, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I'm referring to. At one time, like I said, that skate park has been going since Richardson was cheap. That's been an ongoing issue
Well, and it was moved from,
from the district.
That's
office to
right.
The tennis court behind the swimming pool.
so what, do you have a plan or a thought that was already gonna come forward for that skate park? I mean, there's different levels of skate parks, so what, I mean, I thought it was just replacing surface apparatus.
this is what it's really going to consist of. It's going to be, here's how much we have to work with. And we're going to ask these contractors to give us conceptual designs with the product lines that they have to stay within that budget. And then as to start, and then we'll work with that particular contract that we award to like fine tune it. But we could be concrete based equipment, so it's less easy to move around and manipulate, or it could be modular, which is kind of similar to what we have out there now, which is more flexible, but it's also more vulnerable to damage. And we've looked at multiple types. And we initially started focusing on modular equipment, because it was, seemed to be the most cost effective. But we, actually through the course of this North Shafter Park project that we got connected with a skate park consultant that's done multiple projects down south, who's really strongly advocating for the concrete. And they're able to build concrete equipment on top of an existing concrete slab. So the design RFP or the design build RFP that we've drafted is basically, here's the site, here's what you have to work with. What can you get done within the allotted amount of funds that we have available? And then separately, we'll contract for the installation of lighting to enhance the use of the park during night.
So what are dollars are you considering at this time?
The design RFP as drafted has a forecast of 500,000. The allotment through Clean California is probably closer to 770,000. We wanted to be mindful that we also have to build lights, landscaping improvements, maybe do some site grading. So we wanted to put that equipment budget at 500 just to ensure that we had enough funding to tackle the off-site improvements.
So that's a pretty large skate park then. It's not any.
At one time, there was no skate park.
Yeah.
Now there's vision, there's talk about multiple skate parks. So I think one was by Fresno, correct?
Right.
I think some.
The new one.
The new park in North Shafter will have a skate features,
Okay.
but I don't know that you'd want to call it a skate park though.
And then I think the rec had talked about a skate park.
Yeah,
don't-
I think,
Yeah, it's in their plan.
well, I think it was in their plans. I think they scrapped with
And I just,
their budget woes.
I don't, I mean, I'm all for skate park, okay, I'm not trying to talk, I'm just
No.
trying to see the long-term vision here. And I don't know if that might be the right place for a skate park, not, maybe we could move it to another place where it's the right place. I don't know, it's just, we're talking.
I thought the same thing, but I wondered if it was gonna be just replacing what was there. So there's a big
Right.
difference.
The flip side of it in that location, I'll take the other side of that argument, I guess, is you've got all that residential in that area. You've got Kirschman Park sitting right next to it. And then obviously the youth center. So if you do invest with commercial up front of it, I actually think that commercial would add to the ambiance of what's going on there, because then you end up having that commercial frontage, if you will. And yeah, it would feel like it's hidden, but you still got all of that residential. And that's kind of a high dense residential area. I think it still makes a lot of sense in the area. What concerns me is if we just create a concrete monument versus a concrete skate park with kind of this green park feel around it, because I think what we see a lot is it may be one or two kids going, but if you have that green feel to it, something small, something simple, I get it. But if you have something kind of attached to it, then you end up with more of that family feeling where my olders are skating, but I have a child, a baby, and we went and, hung out the swings or whatever. And you've kind of got this little green space, especially with the apartments in that area and what have you.
I agree, the housing, that's perfect, but I think if we want to keep that there, maybe we'll make it combine like a park and a skate park. So the developer who develops that area now could put, maybe let's say an In-N-Out burger, well, now they could go and sit down
Yeah.
and watch the kids. So it's all connected.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know if that's the thought.
No, I think that's really where you want to, that's a fantastic way of looking at it, because you really want to incorporate this really nice mixed use concept where you have that option available to you. I mean, even we, us as a family, will grab something to eat and we'll head to a park and eat. A lot of people do that, right? I'm not the only one. So it's a really cool concept when you do it. I still like the area and what you're able to do with it, but to do a nothing but concrete structure, I don't know if I would be, I would like to see some type of combination between the two. But I think we don't know what we don't know. That's what conceptual design is all about. It sounds like you're already on that trail.
And you'll have an opportunity to provide input once we have some conceptual drawings or designs.
And the side note is, you get a developer in there to do commercial, and you can have kind of a side agreement with them saying, we'd like you to also develop on the backside a little green space, if you will. I think you can definitely work that out.
Yeah, just that vacant parcel to the east that we're referring to between the skate park and CBH, it is general commercial. So something to think about that the developers gonna have to take into consideration is they're gonna have to deal with Caltrans in terms of getting egress out of the shopping center, say
Mhm.
the supermarket. And if you look at the layout there, there's the median basically from that, I think it's a church there on the corner down to Ash. So they're probably gonna have to do turn lanes and whatnot, dealing with, I'm not an engineer, but just based on experience from other projects.
You'll get a good glimpse of what they want, looking at the medical center further south.
Mhm.
Oh, there
All
you
right.
go.
And so, it may be more easier for them to come in and out at Ash,
Mhm.
right? Because they'll be dealing with us and not Caltrans, which then it may require them to flip the building to where the back of the building would not be facing the residential, but it would be facing CBH. I mean, we could require them to put a retaining wall to block the backside of the store. Also, we got to take into consideration any truck traffic coming in to make deliveries to their loading docks. That if the back of the buildings to the residential, they're gonna be hearing all that noise very early in the mornings and whatnot.
Mhm.
So that's just some considerations that whichever developer comes in for that commercial piece, we would have to work that out with them, and that ultimately they may be better off putting the backside of their business facing CVH and then coming off Ash, and then the frontage of their building would be facing the park.
I have a question if you don't mind. The work at Santa Fe going to Enos on 7 Standard, we've done some of the quote unquote legwork or engineering for that. How much of it do we own versus the county owns, and how much is Kern Cog putting into this? And well, I guess, is that a Kern Cog project at this point, or are we just trying to get shovel ready on our side to say, hey, we're ready to go if you guys ever decide to widen that road?
If I understand you correctly, we're talking about the Santa Fe Way improvements.
Yeah, because I thought it was, yeah, correct. Go ahead.
The shoulders.
No, not the shoulders. You've got,
There's two phases. There's the shoulder project that we're about ready to start. That is an F-tip Kern Cog program project.
Mhm.
There's 1.3 million of a $1.5 million project is through the F-tip, and then there's TDA or gas tax that would locally derive funds that would fully fund the project. I believe there's also an ARPA allocation for that project, just to make sure to make sure it's fully funded. But the resurfacing project that'll continue the work probably a few months from now, because we're actively working through this is money that was awarded through Congressman Valadeo. The HUD is actually administering that grant.
Okay.
It's a $2 million grant. I don't believe there's any local match tied to that. And the initial estimate is that we've developed suggests we can improve the entire stretch to 7 Standard Road, including a portion which is Riverside to Cherry that's in the county's jurisdiction. You know, realistically, we could hold out and try to get the county to participate, but I think it's, given that we're fully funded without their funding partnership, I think we're better off just moving forward with the project. And we'll still have to get a county permit to do work within the right of way, but that's basically what we're doing with the shoulder project. We're improving the street, the entire stretch.
but so that's the shoulder, but you've got this project on here that is widen 7 Standard Road, Santa Fe to 43.
Widen 7 Standard. Oh, that's the,
That's different.
forgive me. That's a preliminary engineering project. We're at about $900,000. And we initially started, that was initially a county project.
Correct.
That the county was unable to fulfill. And so Kern Cog staff asked if the city would be willing to continue and to ensure that that preliminary engineering work got done. Because this is, you know, without us, that federal money would have gone away and gone to a different project. So we stepped up and we ran with the project. Not only that, but we were able to secure an additional 400,000 approximately to minimize the local funding portion of that project. I will say that that project has been snagged multiple times, most recently because there was some talk about the need for a roundabout at 43 and 7 Standard Road.
Oh my gosh.
And so we had the potential for overlapping preliminary engineering work. And so we had to define what the boundary of our project was versus what the boundary of the roundabout project was. And after a year of back and forth, literally a year, I think we're ultimately going to settle that our widening project is going to go as far west as Cherry. And then we'll try to figure out what to do further west to the intersection of Highway 43. But we've literally had a consultant on standby for a year to give us time to sort all that out with Kerncog, Caltrans, and you also have, remember, you've got City of Bakersfield and you've got the County of
Mhm.
Kern, major stakeholders in this project, and you want to make sure that you have their buy-in as well.
And that's the only reason I was asking is we're managing the project, but we don't own all that property through there. Most of that's Kern County, right?
Most of that, actually, quite a bit of it is Bakersfield on the south
Okay.
side.
On the south side, yeah. And then on the north side
We
is,
stop at Cherry and then,
and then they pick up after that.
correct, correct.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious how that breakdown. Have they indicated, I guess, based on how many delays you're starting to encounter? Kerncog hasn't indicated if that is a project that's going to go forward anytime soon.
Which phase?
The widening of that up to Cherry.
Construction wise, no.
Yeah.
But we went by taking the funding to do preliminary engineering work, we're kind of on the hook to ultimately ensure that that gets built. And I believe you have up to 10 years to figure that out.
You know, while you
Thank you.
talk about all of Santa Fe, what happens when the turnabout goes in, the roundabout, and the Beach Street, you know, some people call it LA, but it gets closed down and it's not going to be used at all. So the traffic that's using it now, where does it go and what is the plan for that transportation movement?
Realistically, it goes towards Cherry Avenue.
But are we planning something for that?
We're wonderful, is definitely planning and advocating for an investment in Cherry Avenue and
Cherry?
so yeah, those efforts are underway. I think the roundabout's going to happen before the significant improvements at Cherry Avenue happen, and we have some arrangement with the High Speed Rail Authority to invest in those types of improvements, but that was really high speed rail driven. So I don't know if their timeline is consistent with our timeline. I think the roundabout's on a faster track to get built and lead to that beach closure.
But we shouldn't be putting that roundabout in or closing beach unless high-speed rail is in, because you're going to destroy Lerdo Highway. The CVH and Lerdo Highway are just going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I would not imagine that, I mean, you know, engineering it out makes sense. But having, well, I guess this goes back to your previous comment, because we would have, once you have the money from the grants to engineer it out, you have to build it eventually. Is that the case?
Depends on the grant.
Yeah.
But I will say that I will point out that in the CIP for the roundabout, we're committing, or we're asking to commit to the right of way acquisition. So we're kind of looking to take that roundabout to the next step. The arrangement we have with Caltrans, and it's really just a handshake agreement right now, is that, you know, city is going to lead the engineering and right of way acquisition, and Caltrans is going to fully fund the construction of that roundabout, which is valued at anywhere from $6 to $8 million. And so this is an opportunity that we don't want to miss out on. As bad as traffic is or can get on Lerdo, that intersection is already pretty bad. And the roundabout is about the most feasible thing to do short term.
I just don't want to see us hurt
Well,
the
yeah.
eastbound traffic on Lerdo because we closed beach down and high-speed rail still hasn't stepped up to the plate. I mean,
It may not.
it's only going to escalate when they decide to shut Lerdo down to actually put that rails crossing in. You know what I mean? That's the only reason I asked the question. I think the roundabout makes sense there. I don't like closing beach because I use it, but it does make sense if high-speed rail is sitting there.
I think beach will probably need to close just for the backup that can be on the BNSF main. I think that's the main motivation to get rid of that more sooner than later, just for that safety concern. And there already have been train on truck accidents, and it's no fault of the train operator, but
Right.
and it is a difficult intersection to navigate if you're a truck driver and you don't know exactly where that main rail line is with respect to your the driver's seat.
But
But-
you know, all the intersections are that way because they're on an angle.
Correct.
That's why I said, people are asking me what's going to happen when and if that closes, and then what happens to traffic. And really going down to Cherry doesn't please a whole lot of people. And then coming back this way to the track that's there now at CBH or Santa Fe, whatever you want to call it, is not a good deal either. I mean, it'll just saturate.
Cherry is actually really busy.
Yeah, that too. I mean, that's the whole thing. So how far was, you mentioned WIP was going to be involved in that. I didn't know they were coming that far up to Cherry.
Well, the south side, the south side of the BNSF main is, that's ultimately going to be more than likely an extension of the industrial park,
Mhm.
closer to 7 Standard Road. And, I will say that we are actively coordinating major transportation routes with county, city of Bakersfield, and there's been a lot of momentum towards having Cherry Avenue become the new Highway 43 to link Highway 99 on the north side and 119 on the south side.
Mhm.
You heard me mention the west side, the West Beltway before, when we built the first phase, the first stretch of it east of Target. And initially, the West Beltway was supposed to be extending all the way to 99 and as far south as 119. But the reality of the situation is that we're not going to be able to tame the right of way like we thought we would. And things have developed a little differently than we originally planned 20, 30 years ago. So like I said, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of people leaning towards putting their focus on Cherry Avenue to become a expressway or even more.
It makes sense when you look at
Because
it on the map.
Burbank was involved too, but the Burbank's kind of gone away too.
Well, that Burbank alignment at times is what's viewed as the envisioned to be the North Beltway
Yeah.
that runs east-west, even connecting with Highway 99.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why Bakersfield isn't all that motivated to put much more of investment in the West Beltway, because at least up to 99, because the North Beltway it's going to be providing that connection with 99.
Yeah. Folks, any other questions? Okay,
So, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I have a couple of items. One of them is, are you okay with me leaving this, or should we go through more pages? Are you okay with how much we cover so far?
I'll make sure you guys are okay. I think you've done a great job. By the way, I think the 5-year look ahead is,
Well, we had 5
Fantastic.
years before and it worked well.
yeah,
I mean, it's a good plan. There's nothing wrong with that plan. That's super good.
yeah, you've done very well with it. I'm good.
I really like the presentation. I like this. Yeah.
Turn your mic on.
I
Thank
like how this is how you put this together. And where the source funding is coming from, the ongoing expenditures, and that's really nice. Really good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't mean to leave it all, but there's a lot of pages and I wasn't sure if you wanted more, or if it's okay, then we're good. I do have another thing, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, a correction from the previous meeting that I'd like to point out for the record.
Yes.
So
Sure. Thank you.
So this is general fund operating expenses that we discussed on the last meeting. And through a formula, there was a reference that was a formula that was wrong. It was locked. And if you notice on the M&O, all of the amounts are the same, 2.9 million, that's incorrect. So just wanted to make sure there's a total of projected of 15.7 million for general fund operating expenses. The correct version is the next slide. And so this would be the correction at $17.1 million. So my apologies for that. And that is on the M&O had the wrong amount on the previous meeting. So just wanted to make sure that I point that out.
Thank you.
The next meeting will be, and maybe the city manager will discuss a little bit more in more detail on May 2nd, where department heads will present additional requests and will present also accomplishments and the department's information. So if there's no further questions, that's all I have.
Very nicely done. Thank you. I appreciate you doing this.
Mayor and council, nothing further.
Ladies and gentlemen, any other questions, comments, concerns?
Just thank you, Roger, for your report. Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
We'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Espinoza, second by Mayor Pro Tem Prout. All those in favor with aye.
Aye.